Welcome back, or welcome, Vie Darling, the Cosmic Queen and your intergalactic interpreter, here with a message, a divine transmission regarding the vernal equinox, or if you're in the northern hemisphere, the spring equinox, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, the winter equinox. But the messages are essentially the same. In the last video that we did, I explained the esoteric, quantum, universal, cosmic, what have you about all of this. And we went deep, and it was quite thorough. So I would really recommend going and watching that if you have not seen it. Because we're actually going to get now into the divination portion. So we're going to be talking about the chart, and we're going to be getting some tarot guidance in here. And then the next part of the video is probably going to be practical guidance, so that will be the third part. But yeah, just so you know, Clarity Apothecary will be coming back very, very soon, with the whipped body butters, the herbal blends, salt scrubs, baths, all that beautiful good stuff. We're gonna be back with that soon. So just get ready for it. But this feels like a very divine feminine energy that we're coming into here, because it feels like we have really integrated the yin and the yang in a way that is empowering the feminine to be liberated. And this is going to be liberating for the masculine as well. The yin and the yang will be both experiencing a tremendous amount of freedom, and that is because of the light warriors who have been doing that work in their own personal experiences to bring those things into balance within themselves. And so what does this look like? This looks like the understanding of the divine feminine warrior that Venus is. You know, Inanna, the goddess of love and war. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare. I believe it's Brigid who is the goddess of love and war as well. But all over the planet, civilizations and ethnic groups had their own pantheons, in which oftentimes the embodiment of Venus was both a goddess of love and also war. It is in the Hellenic system, that is the Greco-Romantic system, that we see that being stripped away of the feminine. Sekhmet, for instance, is descended from Hathor, the divine mother of love, and she is a warrior goddess and also a goddess of healing. Kali Ma is the mother. She's also the fiercest warrior and demon slayer. And of course, because the feminine is the dark, the yin is the cultivation of the darkness. And she's aware of, yin is aware of the energy that is in her waters. So if there is something toxic in the water, she's aware of that and brings the light of consciousness to that and eradicates it. Okay, and this allows the masculine to be able to show up, the yang, to be able to show up in a way that is authentic and supportive and protective. This allows justice to be served, ma'at. balancing of the scales, justice, which is once again that Athena energy. And we've been getting a lot of that energy. Pink aventurine or pink amazonite. I can never remember which one this is, but let's pull up the chart and let's look at it. So we talked about how there's this massive stellium in Pisces. Well, now we're going to talk about the energy that I've been picking up with Capricorn. When this is the start of the new astral year, and we're going to start shuffling to get a guiding energy for this transmission and this message from the divine. We're going to start with the Rebecca Campbell Work Your Light Oracle deck. Ta-da! Actually, I want to do some book divination, bibliomancy. And I don't know what we're going to get, if I'm being very honest with you, because I just felt called. Okay, so 𝗧𝗵𝗱𝗲𝗍𝗔. I feel like I have some 𝗧𝗵𝗱𝗲, but maybe it's because it came up in readings in the past week. But keywords: purification, healing, communication with spiritual beings, psychic capacities. And that's really what is going on here. That's really what's going on when we start this new cycle that we are embarking upon. It's very much the Fool energy. There is infinite potential in all directions for whatever you want to cultivate. And those of us who are cultivating the new dimension that we are now in, you know, it's important for us to be prepared, and we have been being prepared. We've been going through rigorous, intense training to be able to cultivate this space and usher in this golden age that we are sowing the seeds of. And so there is a purification that had to happen to us, and as it's happened to us, we can be the guiding light for those who we are shepherding. So there's been a lot of Kali energy in the ethers. There's been, and that's what, you know, when I talked about this fullness, this, what I see, it's the ethers, and I see it as this like otherworldly, extra dimensional, interdimensional gel, like the brain in Ex Machina, the AI brain. It's a gel that electrical pulses were sent through to emulate a human brain. And the electrical pulses travel through it because it's water, but it has structure. It's not just like loose water. It has structure because of, and that's what I was talking about when I was saying, like, you know, unconditional love, that's the water, the aqueous nature, but the structure is brought to it by unconditional integrity. And that is something that, like, you know, we've really been mastering, and we've been mastering the idea of unconditional love for a while, but it's the unconditional integrity that we have really been being pushed to understand. And with Pluto at 5 degrees of Capricorn and the 𝗵𝗱𝗄𝗨 at 22 degrees, when I say 22 in a chart, I know that something divine and alchemical and deeply related to karmic liberation is happening. We are ascending, not just to 1111 is definitely about an ascension, and it is a master number, but we're ascending to an even higher realm of mastery with 2222. And it's in the 4th house. It's in the ways in which we have inherited oppression, suppression, repression, marginalization. Those are the structures that the false matrix have been built upon. This division, because we find our power in integrating with others. Interdependence is our power. The ways in which we are unable to show up, our imperfection is made perfect in God. And God shows up through the natural world, through, people in our lives. Situations, people, places, and things happen, and they are agents of the divine working in our lives. So it's important now that we allow ourselves to be held and we allow ourselves to be helped. But we do this by removing ourselves from disempowering relationships. And that might be our relationship to the divine, to God. That might be our relationship to ourselves, definitely. Because all relationships are predicated upon those two relationships. If we do not feel that we are unconditionally lovable, that shows that we have a fraught relationship with our higher power. If we don't feel that way, that's going to show up in every single relationship that we have. I'm able to reject colonial lies of racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, classism. I'm able to denounce those things because I have an integral understanding of unconditional love. I and every other being on this planet is unconditionally loved. That's why they exist. They were meant to. Now, if they've been hijacked and co-opted, even the ones that I don't like, even the ones that I fear, we've been going through this purification period where our consciousness has been being purified. The structures of our lives are being purified so that our mind, bad mind, our mind is being purified of all of those low vibrational, harmful, malevolent, divisive ideas that we have been indoctrinated into are being removed so that we can come into union with our higher power, so that we can come into union with our higher self, with the truth. And I'm able to fight for these truths because I inherently believe in them. And because I'm unconditionally loving, I want the liberation of all people, places, and things. I want the liberation of this planet and her inhabitants and her children. And I want the removal of any parasites that feed on them. Corruption. That is being cleansed. Corruption that has caused devolution is being cleansed and removed and purified. The purification spirit, the dragon fire spirit that is Sekhmet. Kali has ordained it because Kali is related to Saturn. That pressure, that removal of the toxic entities and energies so that we may be living in fresh water. Because life cannot exist without fresh water. That's the 12th dimensional consciousness. That's the Christ consciousness. They say it's unconditional love, but it's not just unconditional love. It's also unconditional truth. Justice. And that's why Yeshua overturned those tables in the temple. That's why he would tell anybody off. And that's why he was an enemy of the state. He's an enemy of the state because he was fighting against corruption. And he was fighting for justice. And you do that when you love. If you don't actually love something, why would you fight for justice for it? Why would you fight for it to be respected and valued and to receive its inalienable rights? You don't do that unless you have love in your heart. And that's why we see so much of the chaos and corruption in the world is because not enough people have love in their hearts. And the things that are about to happen in this next phase of our experience, the things that are about to happen in the 3D collectively are going to be so painful, just like what happened in the past 3 years since 2020. It's going to be so painful that it awakens new levels of love, new parts of our hearts as the truth is exposed. And this is going to allow us, with this Pluto at 5 degrees in Capricorn, and 6 and 4, that makes 10, that makes 1. This healing that is happening on the divine feminine and in our matrilineal heritages creates space for us to heal the patrilineal and the masculine, the yang. And it is going to awaken parts of our hearts that we had forgotten about, that we had shut off to the world in this vampiric culture that we live in, that asks of us to have a hard heart, asks of us to gear ourselves towards psychopathy. Because it's insane to be okay with ecocide, to be okay with the demolition of the planet. It's insane. And it shows a self-hatred. And at the very least, it's a lack of self-awareness. We no longer can hide our heads in the sand. There's an awakening going on. And that awakening is activating parts of us that, it's going to hurt because we're not used to those sensations. And it's going to drive some people to want to exercise maladaptive coping mechanisms, but I'm going to call upon you to choose a spiritual solution. Choose love. Choose truth. Choose self-love. Self-love does not cause harm. It's the medicine. It might be uncomfortable to start looking at your shadow, to start going to therapy. It might be uncomfortable to start taking care of yourselves. It might be uncomfortable to start implementing practices that support you living your best life, but it's not harmful. The discomfort of self-harm is destructive and not in any way generative. And therefore it is not sacred, it is not divine. But the destruction that comes from Kali, that comes from Sekhmet, is generative. It destroys the sickness and makes way for healing. It makes way for, it resets and aligns the space, the energy, the entity, the energy, so that that which is harmonious, that which is healing, that which is generative can come in. And that's what's happening now. We are being awakened to the truth of ourselves, the reality of our existence, the cosmic context, the universal context, the spiritual context, which opens our eyes to what is going on this planet, which is demonic, period. And we're being restored to sanity. So I call upon you to, move through the discomfort with the guidance of trusted healers. And I do include therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists in that. And create a self-care plan that allows you to show up as the best version of yourself so that you can continue growing in your best life. Sacred, divine destruction that sows seeds for new life, for a rebirth, okay? That's what Pluto is all about. And that is what we're going to be experiencing as long as Pluto is in Capricorn. It is the destruction of those veils, of those old timelines, of those old programs that have been keeping us stunted. It's like when you see those feet, those historical pictures of when women would bind their feet because it was supposed to, a smaller foot was supposed to be attractive. So like in ancient Chinese culture, I don't know how ancient it is because there's photos of it, but like in Chinese culture in a time long ago, women would bind their feet so that their feet would be smaller and daintier, and you know, the foot grows maladaptively formed. How are you supposed to walk on a foot that your bones haven't properly developed and are mishmashed? You can't stand properly. You can't walk properly. Your whole alignment is off. Now, this energy is the corrective surgery. Physical promotes resonance with one's divine blueprint of health. Yes, and we've been talking about that in the readings, crystal light grids. Emotional frees one from negativity and negative attachments, enhances psychic capacities, stimulates the process of enlightenment. 𝗪𝗍𝗍 is an psychic surgery, girl. I just said that. 𝗪𝗍𝗍 is an ideal therapeutic stone for crystal practitioners. It can be used to bring spiritual aid to any weak or afflicted areas of the body. It can clear any gray areas from the auric field and wake up the power of one's divine blueprint. It can dispel all types of negativity from the body and auric field, including implants and entities, what I say, and is powerful enough to be used as a tool in psychic surgery. It can cleanse one's field in a way that makes possible conscious interaction with higher beings on many spiritual planes. So I do feel this year there's going to be a lot of activations in the psychic realm, in the realm of consciousness, that's going to allow certain people to wake up to their psychic capabilities and psychic powers. You know, if you are someone who you know that you're telepathic, stop sitting here and lying to yourself and being like, oh no, like I just thought I was going crazy. Like, yo, you're harming yourself by not training yourself. You can only train yourself when you accept what you are and allow yourself to experience it and allow your powers to just flow out of you, and then you get an understanding of what it is at its essence, at its core, and then you master it. Self-mastery. Okay, like that is why we need to be in our integrity. When we are living in our life's purpose and our dharma, we are in our integrity. We are in our truth, who we were born to be. And I feel like this has a lot to do with the ways in which we have policed our emotions and policed our intuition, which is our power to be able to see, to perceive. Because the 4th house is ruled by the moon. Capricorn is the sister sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. They work together, they work in tandem, Saturn and the moon. And this is about communication, which is about healing. And I got that also. I'm going to move over here to Mercury in the 6th house. At 9 degrees. Is it at 9 degrees? Yes, it's at 9 degrees and 13 seconds. It was conjunct with the sun, and now it's making a, I believe, an applying conjunction. You know, why don't we just look at the aspects? The aspects will tell us if it's applying or not. They say Mercury. Okay, all of Mercury, it's separating aspects. Our perception, and I want to see what's the moon as well, because for me the moon and Mercury are the planets of communication, emotional intelligence and mental intelligence, and there's no intelligence without communication. You cannot expand your awareness and your knowledge without communication, without communicating with other sources of consciousness in order to transform your own consciousness. It just doesn't happen. So the moon has an applying square to Mars and conjunction to Neptune, and a separating trine to the ascendant and sextile to Uranus. So the transformation has already happened in Mercury, and we're now having it catching up with the moon, which is in Aquarius at 24 degrees and 27 seconds. But we're talking about Mercury because it's also a sign of divine healing. Has to do with Virgo, and we have been having a lot of the divine sacred mother energy here. Just look at the crystals that I was called to bring to the table, literally. I don't think that this is rose quartz. It's pink something. I don't remember what, but I can look, because I take photos of all of my crystals so that I can have them, because I forget. This is green tanzurite. This is selenite, which I try to always keep on the table. And I'm having such an activation in the left hand, and that's because there's a purging going on of the yin channels, and it has to do with the purging of the relationship that I have to my mother and my matrilineal line. And that also obviously is going to relate to my relationships to the immediate family, which has to do with the 4th house, and not just my immediate family, but also, and I would also say, you know, I think people talk about it the Fortuna is at 8 degrees in Scorpio in the 2nd house, but it also has to do with my relationship to the yin principle and the matrix, the true matrix, not the false matrix, which is the inverted matrix that has been implemented into our minds through colonial ideation and indoctrination. False ideas that warp our reality and warp our perception. The true matrix is what I was talking about, the ethers. The ethers that contain, it's the amniotic fluid, essentially. When I talk about the ethers, it's like the amniotic fluid, and that's what I was talking about when I talk about this substance that fills the universe. And so there is a purging and a purification that's going on in the ethers, and it really also has to do more so to a purging and a cleansing that has to do with our consciousness and our perception, so that we can allow ourselves to be experiencing the true matrix instead of prioritizing the false matrix, which a lot of us tend to do. Oh my God, the world is horrible, da 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 da, and it's like, no, it's not. People are mentally disturbed and sick, and they are spiritually disturbed and sick. And this is keeping them from being able to show up in right alignment, and so they're desecrating the planet. But there's nothing wrong with the planet itself. There's nothing wrong with the universe, the cosmos itself. It's the way that we are treating it and interacting with it that's wrong. That's why this healing is going on. So Virgo is the planet of feminine healing, and I would say that Gemini is also masculine healing, yang healing. But you know, with Mercury here in the 6th house, this healing, I feel like, is completely bringing restoration energy, and that's what I'm talking about. It's like the restoration that is allowed to happen when the destruction of those toxic patterns and behaviors happens. And so we have 13 here, 13 seconds, and the 9 already indicates that we're at the end of a cycle, and the 13 indicates that this is divine feminine, and that we are shifting up into this higher consciousness, this higher dimension that thus far humans have not interacted with and engaged with. So if you've been going through a particularly challenging ascension period, it's because you have been being prepared for that crossover, which is happening at this point in time. The angels and even the 𝗧s themselves can more readily approach one who has been purified by this stone. A 𝗧s enhances all psychic capacities, including clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, remote viewing, prophetic vision, psychic healing, and many more. And all of these things are sacred gifts. And when we tune into our sacred gifts and we tune into the divine, that also causes a purging. This is why I try to do divination every morning, because it brings me into, it aligns my consciousness with the with divinity, with the sacred consciousness, and it just puts me in such a better mood and like orients my thoughts, my actions, my behaviors. And it's hard to focus on the negative when I'm already tuned into God consciousness and the sacred and the beauty in life. You know, this is about the beauty in life. And I do want to say also, because it's the 6th house and it is Mercury, and so I'm really thinking about Virgo. Let's look at Virgo, actually. It's 12th house. So yes, this is getting... The 12th house has a lot to do with the psychic capabilities. It has to do with the subconscious, really, the subconscious mind, and our spiritual life. And I feel like, as I said, you know, this is healing that spiritual rift, that spiritual wound that happens for everybody, because we are born into human bodies, which limit us from being able to fully access our divine consciousness. And it does maybe feel like a deep betrayal, especially if you had a really fractious upbringing. There is a natural fragmentation that occurs, but you know, this is about becoming okay with that fragmentation and learning how to cope with it in healthy ways that are generative and positive, because you know, we manifest as we incarnate for a reason. We incarnate for a reason. It's not for nothing. And so, as I've been saying, it's talking about our day-to-day life, is talking about our patterns, it's talking about our lifestyle and our behaviors. And before, our behaviors maybe were not so generative, they were not supporting of, and so once again, you know, we're talking about supports, we're talking about Capricorn. And let's just look at Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius at 7 degrees. And 21 seconds. 21 to me is very sacred because it's 7 times 3 and it comes down to 3, and so we have 3 and 7 combined. This is sacred wisdom. This is, you know, bringing us into divine union, and reminding us that we are children of God. We are sacred children. You know, each and every single one of us is a child of God. Each and every single one of us is enlivened by the divine spark. And when we remember that, hopefully we can, you know, when we remember that, we come into alignment, even if only for a moment, with that sacred truth and our highest self, our highest iteration. And that can start us onto a life beyond our wildest dreams. That's a miracle. And you know something, you know, I could have never imagined a life where I was not using substances, but me using substances always results in me abusing substances, period. Because I'm trying to fill that void, that is that chasm that is created by incarnation, by incarnating. I'm trying to fill that void that happens from incarnating. And that's not easy. That's not easy. But that void is only going to be filled spiritually. You can't fill it with material things, period. And that brings us back to this. If you think that this circle is empty, it's going to be empty and you're going to feel empty. But if you realize it's already full, then you can activate that fullness. And as I said, it is full. It's full of prima materia, ethereal energy, full of potential, divine potential. And are we going to activate those sparks? Are we going to activate those sparks and activate our consciousness in those spaces so then we materialize there? That's what manifestation is about. That's what setting intentions is about. Activating our agency in our experience instead of just trundling along, not knowing where's up and where's down. You're on a timeline to destruction that you didn't put yourself upon. Self-sovereignty means you take back your power. You remember who that you are. You take back your power and you ascend unto your rightful throne, unto your dominion. And you decide what scenes and situations you're going to find yourself in. So this next phase of our experience, this next cycle, is us learning how to do that. Be mindful. What did you set into motion at the last solstice? And what is manifested in your life, experientially, emotionally, mentally? Where are you at? Take account of that for this end of a cycle, but also this beginning of a cycle. And along each point, make note of that so that you're learning the cycles and the patterns of your personal experience and how things are manifesting for you, what worked, what didn't work, especially as you're ascending into this new level of consciousness. Okay, and that has to do with, we need to be so intentional and mindful in each and every aspect of our lives. And it doesn't mean that every single moment you're thinking, okay, what am I doing now? Like worrying and being hella controlling in the mental space, because that's not healthy. That's not healthy. I want to see about Gemini, because that's very Geminian. Yes, and we have Gemini at 3 degrees or Mars at 3 degrees in Gemini in 73 seconds. That's 10. That makes a 1. So I do believe that this is new beginnings. New beginnings on this sacred journey, where we need to be mindful and intentional. And this goes back to what I was saying about emotional communication and understanding. We're being activated in ways that we haven't ever experienced before, because before we were shutting off our feelings. We weren't experiencing them because we were not allowing ourselves to. For whatever reason, it was too hard. Oh, that's not the right feeling, so I'm not going to experience that. Someone once told me that my feelings were too much, and so I'm not going to express them. Or weaponizing our feelings. It goes in either direction on this maladaptive paradigm, which causes energy vampirism, because we're out of alignment with the fountain of life, that is the 12th dimension, the high heart chakra. We're out of alignment with that, so we're not being empowered energetically. And the dual sides of that are, one, you can become a psychopath or be on the way to psychopathy. And there are degrees to that, being toxic, being a narcissist, being a sociopath, then being a psychopath. Usually those are people who actually kill other people. In the physical, sociopaths usually harm animals, but narcissists cause harm in the unseen realms. Specifically, they play mind games. Toxic people abuse, like, weaponize their emotions. Oftentimes it's codependent people. That's the other side of that paradigm. It's codependent people. Because there's nobody who feels nothing. Nobody feels nothing. It's just a learning and understanding of how you feel it and how you experience it. There are people who mentally cannot perceive or conceive of what their feelings are telling them or what other people's feelings mean. There are people like that. And there's recovery for people like that. But we're talking about people who've experienced trauma that creates, through indoctrination, through trauma, that creates energy vampirism. Because codependent people are also energy vampires. The codependent and the narcissist are two sides of the same coin, and they need each other. They're both sick. And those are the patterns and the cycles that we have been liberating ourselves from. So some of us are still doing that work, while others of us are now really grounded in that work. And we're still transforming in our experience. Okay? We're still transforming in our experience, and we're still, fumbling towards repair. We're still figuring out what that means and what that looks like for us. So just be mindful. And, as I was saying, the emotional intelligence. Some people just lack emotional intelligence, usually because they're repressing their emotions and their feelings. And this can cause a lot of people who do not have a sophisticated understanding of the emotional body, of psychology, of, those sorts of interpersonal relationships. This can cause harm to be done unintentionally and sometimes intentionally. We're monitoring how we're causing harm, and we're monitoring who's causing us harm and how, and what are our reactions and our responses to that, because that's all that we can control. We're also monitoring if these people are capable of changing. And everyone's capable of change, but are they willing to change? Are they willing to grow? Are they willing to heal and recover like you are? Because if not, then they're not helpful on your healing journey. All that they can teach you is the same lesson that they already taught you, which is that you need to put yourself first and respect yourself by not allowing others to disrespect you. Create a safe space for yourself by removing harmful entities. Once again, this removal of toxins, removal of harm doers. Let's call it that. We don't need of people who perpetually commit harm or perpetrate harm. People who perpetually, habitually harm us. We don't need to have any other labels for them necessarily. But it is important to be able to identify what kind of behaviors they exhibit, because all diagnoses are just a collection of symptoms, patterns, behaviors that have a name put to them because they show up so much together. So we're being awakened in our emotional body. This is allowing us to come more into alignment with the fountain of life. More life, as I've been saying, more life. And this is an opportunity for us to grow and allow harmony to be expressed. It's an opportunity for us to live our best life or our worst life. And that really has to do with that 12th dimension. That really has to do with all this energy in Pisces. Neptune, vertex, the sun, Mercury, Chiron, Jupiter. That has to do with all of that. Because Pisces is the sign of dreams and nightmares, fantasy, illusion, and that dream space, that prima materia, that essentially the amniotic fluid of the universe, the cosmos, the ethers, is being healed. Our relationship to it is being healed. And healing asks of us to address these issues that maybe we don't want to, and that's the discomfort, that's the uncomfortable part. But it is an opportunity for us to grow. And if we don't, that is when our worst life is going to manifest. Go or be dragged type shit, right? Like, that is very much what's going on with Jupiter at 22 degrees. Higher consciousness. This is expansion in the realms of higher consciousness, in the heart space and the emotional body. Where we've been stunted, we are being expanded in service of the divine, because we are so loved that we are being disciplined so that we can get right. This is the healing. I don't know how else to say it. You know, I feel like I think that, like, a parent who cares about us when we're sick will let us stay home and give us medicine, give us the medicine that we need. A parent who doesn't care, one, might force you to go out and, like, pretend that everything is normal when it's not. But two, if you're like, I don't want to take my medicine, okay, fine, you get to make the rules, you get to decide. No. The universe is loving integrity. You don't make the rules. You don't get to decide. You've been given the opportunity and you haven't taken it, so now I'm gonna make you. Because you need to heal and you need to get better. And you clearly don't love yourself enough, but I'm gonna love you the way that you need to be loved. And on the other side of this, you're gonna be thanking me. So as I said, yeah, let's move on. So with the moon in Aquarius, it's like new insight and new information and new awareness coming in around our emotional intelligence, our emotional body, our emotional life. This might even look like, repressed memories coming up. I would really recommend working with a therapist. I would really recommend it, because for the kind of consciousness awakening that's going on, because the collective is so traumatized, this is not stuff that we should be handling on our own. If you can't get with a therapist, recovery groups. There are 12-step recovery groups, and there are not 12-step recovery groups. There are free ones and there are ones that you pay for, but folks need to have tried and true help. No more figuring out on your own. It's about interdependence with all this Piscean energy. It's about interdependence. And before, we didn't want to get aligned, and now we're going to have to, because we're experiencing a recession, a collapse. And I have said it. This is going to be as bad, if not worse, than the Great Depression. And during the Great Depression, what was also happening, the Dust Bowl, there were environmental disasters. And that caused such a huge shift in our social consciousness. The New Deal was introduced. The New Deal introduced so many of the policies, so many of the governmental agencies that exist today. The national parks would not exist were it not for the Great Depression and the New Deal and the environmental disasters that were happening. The West as it is today would not exist were it not for the Great Depression and the environmental disasters that were happening. The type of welfare that exists. Of course it was exclusionary to Black people. Of course it was. But the world was changed for the better. Period. Democratization is happening. The leveling of the playing field. And it's going to look like a lot of destruction, but guess what? And it is a lot of destruction, but that's the sacred destruction. That's the medicine. And we're going to get through this by turning to one another and asking for the support of our communities. And if you find that they're not supportive, that the community, the communal body, the culture, because as I'm saying it, I'm reminded that like the prima materia that I'm talking about, the ethers, that's a culture. Scientifically, I explained this in another video, but anyway, the point is, the culture is being healed and being detoxified. And if the culture of a community that you are in is toxic, you need to make sure that you are well before you try to help anybody else. So if it's not something that is generative for you, it's time to just leave. Right now, it means that it is a message that that's not where you're supposed to be right now. Maybe later, but right now, stay in the moment. Right now, no. What are the things that make up our everyday life? And our everyday life creates our lifestyle. That is a big part of what Capricorn is about. It's not just about, and that is also a big part of what the 10th house is about. So let's go to the 10th house. It's in Cancer, and we have Dark Moon Lilith here. And this is saying you have to fight. At 13 degrees, that's the most goddess energy. With the MC at 22 degrees, yo. In Cancer? Yes. This is the divine feminine, the divine mother, the sacred mother. 𝗪𝗭𝗪 saying, you're gonna get right. You're gonna get right. And here's how. Here's how. Protecting your peace. Amplifying your joy. Caring about yourself. Enough to say enough to the toxic structures in your life. Your diet is a part of your lifestyle. How you take care of yourself. Are you hormonally balanced? Do you know? If you're anemic, are you just walking around here tired as fuck because you don't do the things necessary to help you? And then you're like, oh, I can't focus. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, maybe if you started getting enough sleep, you would be able to. Maybe if you were getting enough nutrients, you would be able to. Are you prioritizing that in your life for you? Or are you just sitting around hoping that somebody else is going to do it? Are you cultivating a generative energy by making sure that your cup is full before you go out and drain and allow yourself to be taken from? Give yourself to the world. Is your cup full up? If your emotional battery is on E, you don't really need to be out with other people. You don't need to be out with other people at all. because we have to show up in an emotional capacity in any relationship that we have interpersonally. So you need to focus on generating that energy for yourself, whatever that looks like. Feeding yourself, nourishing yourself emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And it's not only in the physical. Definitely consider what kind of media that you're taking in. If you are a person who is gendered as a woman, or someone who identifies as a woman, and you want to find a partner who loves and cherishes you, protects you, honors you, shows up for you, takes care of you, and you're sitting around listening to music that all they do is degrade women, and you're idolizing people who all they do is degrade women in their music and in their personal lives, what do you think that's telling your subconscious to give you? How is that nurturing your manifestations? Because the subconscious is the same waters in the ethers. Manifestation comes through the ethers. We magnetize by putting the electrical charges out from ourselves. We magnetize what we are calling in. And when you're listening to music or engaging with media that degrades what you identify as and what you're also perceived as, that invalidates your desires. Okay? So you need to be taking in media that nourishes you, that grows you, that aligns you with your highest self, the self that you claim that you want to be. Which also means stop entertaining people who do not align with that. And it's really that simple. Why are you entertaining people? You're wasting your time and their time. Your base need and your base desire for attention that can be fulfilled by giving yourself the attention and care that you need, by doing the shadow work to heal those wounds. But you want self-actualization, stop setting the bar so low. Stop going for the low-hanging fruit and start figuring out how to get to the top of that tree. Okay? Heal your self-concept. Because low self-worth is the number one reason why a lot of us are experiencing the draining experiences that show up in our lives constantly. And we have to understand what we're contributing to the karmic cycle. And if it seems like we are showing up the best that we possibly can in every moment, then it might be karmic. It also very well could be a curse. That's something that you need to figure out. Or an attachment or a spiritual contract. And I would really recommend, talking to a spiritual advisor if that's the case. If that's the case, I would really recommend talking to a spiritual advisor, working with a shaman, working with an exorcist, specifically a shaman of your indigenous ancestral lineage. So if you're Irish, you better find somebody who maintains the Celtic, Druidic, Celtic traditions. If you're West African, the 𝗀. You know, whatever, if you're Mexican, like going to the indigenous people. And because people are so mixed up these days because of colonization, you know, if you have white ancestors, you just need to fucking reconcile that shit and stop sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. Like, seriously, that's another way in which people hate themselves. And as long as you're carrying around hate for yourself, that's going to be manifesting in your material reality. You need to unapologetically love yourself and heal those timelines, heal those bloodlines. That's what this is about. That's how you heal your DNA. And I don't understand how people can be like, oh, epigenetic trauma, and then not understand that, yes, that exists. And if that exists and that happened, then it can be reversed. And here's how you do it. But y'all stay talking about that. And stay talking about what happened and why you are the way that you are, but not putting enough energy and attention into healing and to solving that. So what are you going to do? You're going to be a victim your whole life? And this is very much the Lilith energy coming through here. This is that divine mother who actually cares about their child. What are you going to do? You're going to be a victim your whole life? Because victimhood does not equate to self-sovereignty. And once again, you're trundling along a timeline that you did not put yourself on. Because you're too afraid to choose to do something differently, to get off this track. Pull the brake and get off the track. And trust that you will be divinely guided to where you need to go. Because what's worse, continuing towards destruction and you know that that's what you're doing? And that's scary? Or at least making an effort to get better. And that's also scary because that's new. But at least there's infinite opportunity there, whereas the other way, there's nothing. Except more of the same. Demoralization. Choose to heal yourself. Choose to take care of yourself. Choose to love yourself. Because it doesn't matter how much anybody in your life loves you until you love yourself. Until you choose to at least try to love yourself, it's not going to matter. And you're going to continue to experience harm and heartbreak and hardness, hard situations, fragmented energy, discordance. And all of that is the same message telling you what I'm telling you now. And that's that something needs to change. Because that's what pain is. Pain is a message that something is out of whack and needs to be course corrected. You're tired all the time and sabotaging your life. Go to the doctor. Maybe you're eating something that you're allergic to. Maybe your hormones are out of balance. You need to change your diet. That's a really big thing that's been coming up. Maybe you're always drained because you hang out with toxic people who drain you. Maybe you're always drained because you are enabling energy vampires. That family member who can't seem to get it together, who's constantly asking you to bail them out. You're robbing them of the opportunity for them to grow. Which is what the divine wants for them. The divine wants them to heal. And you're robbing them of the opportunity to become self-sovereign. To step into their light, to step into their power. Get the fuck out of the way and let them do what they gotta do. And then maybe you won't feel so resentful. And then maybe you'll have enough resources to actually do the things that you want to do. But you are the one giving it away. That friend who's constantly trauma dumping on you and never listens to the very sound advice that you give them. Put the brakes up. No more of that. direct them to who can actually help them professionally. And I bet you that they won't go. Or maybe you telling them that, you, the most trusted confidant, telling them that might be the thing, the kick in the pants that they need to get right within. The spiritual kick in the pants that they need. And that's how we're agents of karma. Because as I said, you know, with Saturn and Aquarius, it's these new timelines that we are accessing that are growing us in our divine wisdom and our sacred wisdom. And look at what I was saying. Saturn and the moon together in Aquarius. Discipline and compassion, unconditional truth and unconditional love, guidance and intuition. And that is going to be clarified the more healing that we do in the very mundane ways. And it's with the mind, because that is what has that demonic false matrix filter implemented that warps our perception and makes us unable to effectively interact with ourselves, with spirit, with the universe. Okay? So I want to wrap this up. Amazes enhances, okay. It can stimulate intuitive abilities, acting as a source of creative inspiration and instant knowing. It can powerfully activate the mouth of God chakra near the top of the spine at the back of the head. And it harmonizes with all ASTROLOGICals. Okay, so that's really what we get. I think that's like the message that we're getting overall. That's what we get from the chart. I'm not going to push it too much, Spirit. Is there anything divine? Is there anything else that you want to communicate through the chart? I do want to say that Mars at 3 degrees Gemini in 37 seconds. It's a lot to do with self-sovereignty in the 9th house. It's a lot to do with, yes, this consciousness expansion. It's really about opening up ourselves to information that perhaps we weren't so open to before. The mark of a wise person, I believe this is a Confucian saying, but the mark of a wise person is their ability to be able to hold two differing, let's say, opinions, to be able to hold both of them and assess both of them and still be maintaining their own truth. Like, just because you are presented with information that doesn't necessarily align with your subjective truth does not mean that that thing is wrong. It is right for those people that are experiencing it, and we can hold that and we can trust that and we can respect that. It's just like, you know, I understand that as a non-binary person, like as a two-spirit person, like cisgendered people may really not understand my experience, and a lot of trans people don't even understand my experience, and because that's not the consciousness that they carry, that's not their experience. So, you know, they're never going to be able to firsthand understand it, but they can respect it. You know, that's not what I got going on, but that's what you got going on. Okay, I believe you. I believe you. Anna, grandmother of Jesus, seeding the light, laying foundations, divine plan. Yes, yes, we are cultivating new earth, seeding the golden age, activating the crystal light grid, the crystal kingdoms of crystal consciousness, iridescent consciousness, activating in the Godhead. So just show up as yourself, show up as your real true self, because that's what the world needs. Therefore, that's what the universe needs. The universe doesn't need more of the same. That's why it's always creating something new. It's always changing. Just show up as your best most authentic self. And everything will align exactly as it's meant to. When we take back our self-will and we start policing ourselves and mitigating ourselves and marginalizing ourselves, you know, and accepting limitations that others have maybe projected on us, and those become our self-limiting beliefs, that's when we get limited and when we can no longer access what we were born to access. But to me, Aquarius and Pisces are both signs of liberation, of freedom. And with Pisces, it is divine integration with the collective, with the divine. This is about interdependence. But it also has to do with structure. And that's why Pisces and Capricorn, to me, work together. And they have so much that they can learn from one another. Because, as I said, like, the unconditional love and the unconditional integrity and a maladaptive Piscean energy is enabling, is codependent, is emotionally manipulative, and is a succubus energy. You know what I mean? And oftentimes they're not necessarily draining the energy of the narcissist, but they are draining the energy of everybody around them. And I'm not just talking about Pisces. I'm talking about anybody who has that that shadow energy manifests that way for them. And so it is about the little everyday ways in which we show up. Oh, I was saying, because it's making, the Mars is making a square to Neptune vertex and the sun. It's separating conjunction, no longer really with separating square with the moon, but mainly those two there, not Mercury. It's because there's just so many of them that it's hard to like even see anymore clearly. But yeah, so it's making a square to that, and it's like, you know, we can go either direction. We can choose to go back and revert and relapse into what I say is like fall into my bones, sink into my old bones, you know, fall back into the behaviors and patterns that I'm supposed to be rising up out of. Because the world needs you to show up as this version of yourself that's being projected to you from your higher self, so that you can lay the blueprint and be an example to those who are watching you. And you may not even think that you're inspiring anybody, that anybody is watching you, but they are. So it's so important for you to just start showing up as yourself moving forward. Your best self, you're the highest version of yourself, the healthiest version of yourself. And you know, you may fall off the path a little bit, as I said, bumping towards repair. Not every day you're gonna meet all of your top goals for yourself, not every day, but some days you will, and those will be the most beautiful days when you're the most proud of yourself. But you can be proud of yourself every day when you are just doing one little thing in the direction of expressing your highest truth, your highest version of yourself. Even if that means that like you're just getting out of bed and brushing your teeth. Even if that means you just get out of bed and you walk around your bedroom one time. When that feels impossible and you do it, that's a miracle. That's a miracle for you. And it shows that miracles are possible. As I was saying, like, I couldn't imagine a time when I would not be using substances. And I'm somebody who I can't use substances without abusing substances. It takes me to a place of incomprehensible demoralization. It robs me of my autonomy, my agency, my sense of self. And that's just what it is. That's just how it is for me. I couldn't imagine that life, and frankly, I didn't want to be someone who was sober. I didn't want to be someone who was sober. I wanted to be somebody who could use with impunity, who was able to use inner temple, devotion, tune into the portal of your heart. Exactly. I couldn't see. I wanted to be like everybody else. And I wanted to use, because I liked it. And it made, specifically when I smoked, it made me, or did psychedelics, it made me feel like I was, you know, experiencing the consciousness that I experienced without being in a body before I incarnated. And that's what I wanted, because I had that spiritual wound that comes from incarnating. But I didn't realize that nothing outside of me can fill that. It's a spiritual wound. It needs a spiritual solution. And that is something that's inside of me. That's something that I have to do. Nobody can do that for me. I have to do it. Because I didn't see that for myself, and I didn't even want that for myself. The fact that I'm sober today is a miracle. It's a sacred miracle. Because an unsacred miracle is the amount of people who are dying every day due to their myriad different addictions. You can die from being addicted to sugar. Just the same way you can die from being addicted to meth, you can die from being addicted to sugar. You can die from a sex addiction. So you can develop things that will kill you. Just the same way that if you were addicted to, you know, other substances. So it's a miracle today, and it didn't happen overnight that I haven't had an alcoholic beverage in over 4 years. It didn't happen overnight that I haven't smoked weed in almost 3 years. It has happened day by day. It has become a lifestyle for me by putting one foot before the other. I didn't become a published writer by, oh, one day I just am a published writer. I had to do the things that got me there. I had to write and write and write and put myself out there and put myself out there and put myself out there and deal with rejection. And then, as I did the things that published writers do, submitting my writing to places and actually doing the writing, then and only then did I become a published writer, because eventually somebody accepted my writing. But in all of that time, regardless of if I was published or not, I was still a writer, because I had the practice of being a writer, the lifestyle of being a writer. And there's nothing to that lifestyle, all those projections that you see, all the lifestyle patterns that you see other people who identify as writers putting out there into the world. Okay, they have their way and you have yours, but all that matters is I'm writing I'm writing, period. So, you know, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy. What are you doing to manifest that in your life every single day? Having my best life required me to stop destroying myself and debasing myself. And it's not like I necessarily consciously wanted to do that. One, I subconsciously wanted to do that. I self-consciously was self-harming. But two, I knew that I couldn't control what would happen if I put substances inside of me. I knew that. That's my lower power. So what did I do? I had to stop completely. First with drinking, and then I decided that it would be other things as well. Because the drinking was the thing that was destroying my life most readily. I'm physically allergic to alcohol. I cannot metabolize it. And other people can, but I can't. So I had to stop trying to be like other people. in order to live my best life. In order to live my best life, that I really needed to graduate from university. And I couldn't do that if I continued smoking. So I quit. Will I do that again in the future? I don't know. I'm here today in the present moment in these 24 hours. I'm making the most of these 24 hours. That's all that I can do. But if I show up as my highest self and I show up as my best self, I'm also setting the tone for future me. I know that I don't want to have to like come into the kitchen and wash dishes in the morning to start my breakfast. I don't want to have to come into the kitchen and clean the coffee pot before I make the coffee. So present me cleans the coffee pot tonight so that I can wake up tomorrow and have a smooth transition into my morning routine. I clean the bathroom because I know that it bothers me when it's not clean. And I deserve to live in a peaceful environment. Is there work that could be done on me to help me to better, because for me, the cleanliness thing is a trauma response. I can simultaneously work on healing that with my therapist and also do the things that I need to do in order to make myself feel safe in the moment. My best life includes me feeling safe in my body and my mind. Includes me not feeling stressed out. So as I said, with this Mars in Gemini, we have the opportunity to go back or to go forward in every single situation and every single moment. That's what I was talking about, the crossroads. We are always making decisions, and we need to understand that. That's what lifestyle is about, is that we're always making decisions. Is this decision going to benefit me? Is this decision going to send me in the direction that I want to go in, or is it going to send me in the direction that I don't? And you can tell because you can feel it. Your intuition will let you know. And if you have a fraught relationship with your intuition because your emotional body is fragmented, that's something that you work on with a therapist, and also maybe spiritual healer, but yes, a therapist. If all these psychic gifts are awakening, you need to get your mind right, period. If I were you, I wouldn't necessarily tell my therapist that I'm a witch, but it is what it is, or about my psychic powers, but it is what it is. So, you know, thinking about, they talk about the 10th house and it's like, oh, the 10th house is about your career. It's not. That's some capitalist Western BS. It's about your lifestyle. And your lifestyle includes, it's predicated upon your consciousness. It's predicated upon your spiritual life, because if your spiritual life is not serving the consciousness that you have awoken to, then you're going to feel all sorts of unfulfilled. And your spiritual life, your every other form of your life needs to be centered on that spiritual life. Because honestly, the spirit and the consciousness, they work together. And when they're out of alignment, you can feel it because everything else is out of alignment. The consciousness is the divine masculine principle. The spirit is the divine feminine principle. The Holy Spirit is feminine, Shekinah. God consciousness, the light, is masculine. It's that activating force, like the sun, which is in Pisces. Right now, we can activate anything. Golden egg. The golden egg. Midas touch. You have the Midas touch. The wheels are off. The brakes are off. The training wheels are off. Now you are fully in your power. How are you going to use it? You know what I mean? And so you can choose to continue amplifying the harmful, toxic stuff, the stuff that you don't really even like, or you can choose to amplify the things that bring you joy and make you grateful. And yes, that does have to do with your career. Yes, that does have to do with your income in a way. But manifestation, the principle of manifestation is that like you can manifest and you don't have to have money to have the things that you want. You want to go on a trip, you can get flown out and get a per diem. I want to be flown out and I want per diems all over the world. That's what I want. I want to travel for free and live a luxurious lifestyle for free. I don't want to spend my money on it. That's my lifestyle. What does that have to do with my career? Nothing. That's the 10th house though. How you walk through life. What are the structures of your life? What are the mainstays of your life? My relationships. My romantic partner. My family relationships, my platonic relationships, yes, my professional relationships, my relationship to, all predicated upon my relationship to myself. And that's all predicated upon my relationship to the divine. You see? And this is why top to bottom manifestation is the way to go. My everyday life, my mundane life, needs to serve my spiritual life, because that's the way that I feel fulfilled. And that's the way that every day is an experience that is worthwhile to me. And if I find that something is draining me, that doesn't need to be part of my life anymore. I'm not going to be friends with a bunch of people who do not desire to have the same lifestyle as myself. So if I know that, yeah, I might like fashion, but I live a spiritual life, and that's my priority. So top line is spiritual baddies. Bottom line, relapse is, for me, is being friends with people who do not prioritize the spiritual. And they may look good on the surface, but they do not prioritize the spiritual. Okay? So understanding what your top lines are, what your bottom lines are, what constitutes relapse into the old bones for you. Because every single moment is an opportunity, is you are being presented with an opportunity to move in a new direction. Are you going to go around the loop again? Are you going to descend? For me, that would look like drinking again. Am I going to stay stagnant and know that I'm tired of certain things in my life and I'm ready for them to change? And I've accepted that and I'm open to those opportunities, but I'm not jumping the gun because I understand divine timing. I am doing the things that will bring in what I want for my lifestyle though. And that is how I'm elevating. Okay? Inner temple devotion, tune into the portal of your heart. So follow your heart. Your heart is your compass in this life. There's no reason why if you're running into trouble when you're following your heart, that's how you know that's the medicine. That's how you know that that's something that's helping you to grow. If you're running into tension, discomfort is a message that something needs to change. But always be pursuing your heart desire and listen to your intuition, because sometimes the heart is blind. Unbound in the indirect position, trust the niggle. What is the niggling feeling telling you? Releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. Throughout the rest of the year, this is going to be happening, that the clearing is happening. We're just cleaning up the wreckage of the past. It's not, we're just catching up. So that lag that was happening from the winter solstice until now, that's being closed, and everything's about to start happening because we have that Wheel of Fortune energy going on here. Trust the niggling feeling. What is the niggling feeling telling you? That's that gut instinct, and if your gut health is messed up, it's time to get that figured out. Okay, so I really feel, okay, and just last thing is that is making a sextile to Saturn in with 7 degrees in Aquarius. 7 degrees and 21 seconds in the 5th house. And that's essentially exactly what I was telling you, everything that I was saying about lifestyle. So that's all. I'm gonna do the tarot for practical advice, which I feel like I already did, so that might be a lot shorter. Feel free to tune in. I would really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely share with somebody who you feel like could really use this message. I love you all truly and deeply. Thank you for tuning in, and happy hunting.